What is up, everybody? Happy night one of the NFL draft. And there has been a crazy sequence of events occurring here. Right now, it appears, at least from what I can see on my phone and or what's going on a little bit behind me. I'll move a little bit. I don't want to have copyright problems. But from what we could tell, Bo Nix just went off the clock for the Broncos. The Raiders are on the clock. And they just took Brock Bowers, breaking some Bengals fans' hearts. And here we are at pick 14. And available is Fautanu. Available, unless I missed it, Fuaga, right? Because there's been just a slew of quarterbacks flying off the board here. So we've got a handful of picks left. Bowers hurts. He slid a little bit further. That is a good pick for the Raiders, by the way. I think that is a solid pick for them. But yeah, my goodness. If you're looking at ESPN best available, you've got Dallas Turner. Are the Bengals going to play hardball with one of their two players who are asking for trades at this point in time? You've got Quinion Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, the two top corners in the class. Latu, the edge defender, the hyper athletic edge defender from UCLA. You got Byron Murphy there. You got Fautanu there. So, man, just a lot of good players left on the board here. And so, man, great spot. People are saying, oh, the Bengals are going to trade up, all this kind of stuff. Great spot for them. By the way, I'm Anthony, and this is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. And we are now part of the Believe podcast network, talking NFL draft. I'm going to be joined pretty soon here by my co-host, John Sheeran, probably shortly after the pick, hopefully shortly after the pick, talking about it. So yes, Brock Bowers now with the, did I call him Oakland? I hope I didn't call him Oakland. Las Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints currently on the clock. And there are going to be a lot of good players, unless something crazy happens in the next three picks. You got Fautanu. I'm looking at it here and I'm saying, did I miss Fuaga? I don't think I missed him, because there's been like 6 quarterbacks taken already. And you've got Mims. You've got a lot. I mean, yeah, geez, Peter. I mean, I don't know. Now is that the choice? There's so many choices. Maybe trade back a little. I don't know. Maybe that's the play here, depending. I think also, though, now with so many quarterbacks going a lot earlier than I think a lot of people expected, now you're kind of saying, okay, I think the teams that would have been willing to trade up, I don't know that there's going to be that many more, unless there's some that just have, some of the lower picks. Maybe I think Carolina has, I don't believe they have a first round pick, so maybe they want to hop into the first round for somebody. We will see. So anyway, yeah, that's something there. And then we've got our guy, Kyle. What's up, Kyle? Good to see you. Dan the man, I'm seeing all kinds of our buddies here, and a lot of people joining us on Twitter/X. Fun night. The first 5-6 picks, you're kind of going, okay. The Giants kind of started the I guess the run of unexpected, because they went Malik Neighbors. They did not go with a quarterback like some people thought they would do there. And so now they kind of started a run, and then you had Minnesota moving up. This was just a crazy sequence of events here. let's see if we can recap here everything that has happened. Well, now, like I said, we've got the Raiders on the clock. The Colts are the Raiders just picked Brock Bowers. Excuse me. The Colts are on the clock with the pick, and I'm sorry, the Saints are on the clock with the next pick, and then you've got the Colts. Man, the thing I'm looking at is not not very user friendly. But regardless, the Bengals in a good spot. It's going to be incredibly entertaining and incredibly interesting to see what they do, because they've got two players that have requested trades. One reiterated it and the other requested it the day before the draft, because they're trying to get, obviously them and their agents are trying to get more interest in their services going forward, and hopefully prompt a trade, prompt a team to be active and proactive to get them here. So now you're seeing a lot of people saying, get a DT. Here's the thing, and we talked about it for those who watched our show yesterday. The Bengals just have not, that's not been a position that they have taken in the first round often. The Bengals just choose to, they prioritize tackle, they prioritize the offensive skill positions, and others. They just, interior defensive line has just not been, it's the same thing with interior offensive line. That's why Kevin Zeitler, when they picked him, and Billy Price too, that was just kind of an anomaly in terms of their historical perspective on those positions. So here's the thing. For me, I get it, guys. I get trade back and, maybe see what falls to you. I also have seen this team do that before, and just a couple of picks in front of them, the premier players, the players you really want to see them grab, get snagged, and they almost kind of settle. And so I would not like to see that for the Bengals this year. I say they stay put. I say, that in itself is kind of letting things fall to them at this point. And so I think they stay put, and I think you get the best person the best player that you think you could use at this point. Offensive tackle, defensive tackle, still the option there. T. Martin says, yeah, I'm thinking so. Unless Brian Thomas is the wild card here, I don't know. Like I said, I think a lot of us thought that there'd be a little bit of a faster run on offensive tackle at this point, but the quarterbacks, we knew there'd be a lot of them taken. I didn't think it would be, some people were saying Bo Nix was going to be a second round guy. McCarthy, nobody really knew where he was going to go. So, and there are just a lot of good options here for the Bengals. And let's see what we got here. We got Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, quarterback out of USC, going to the Chicago Bears. We've got Jaden Daniels going number 2 overall out of LSU to Washington. Drake May going number 3 overall to the Patriots. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver, going to the Arizona Cardinals. Joe Alt, maybe a little bit of a surprise. Some people thought maybe he was going to go a little bit later in the top 10, but for the most part, especially maybe those first 4 picks, that kind of predictable. Then you got Neighbors going to the Giants, the receiver out of LSU. J.C. Latham, the guy that a lot of people thought the Bengals were going to try and move up for if he was going to be there. He goes to Brian Callahan and the Tennessee Titans, and Bill Callahan and the Tennessee Titans there at number 7 overall. Falcons, so that's 6, 7, 8 is where things kind of started to get, wow, just crazy. Michael Penix Jr. going to the Falcons, a guy that they thought was maybe a fringe first round, second round player. I really like Penix, by the way. Rome Odunze going to the Bears. So they get Caleb Williams and Rome in their first 2 picks within the top 10. Good job by them. Vikings move up to 10, get JJ McCarthy. And I think they swapped with the Jets there, just 1 pick. And then Fashanu goes number 11 to the Jets. Obviously, the tackle out of Penn State there. Bo Nix with the Broncos pick at number 12. Brock Bowers going number 13 to the Raiders. And now more hearts break after the last two picks. Brock Bowers to the Raiders and Taliese Fuaga, the Oregon State, one of my favorite players in this entire class, goes just a couple of picks before the Cincinnati Bengals go on the clock here at number 14 overall to the New Orleans Saints. So there are three more picks before the Bengals are now on the clock. You have the Colts, you have the Seahawks, you have the Jaguars, and you have the Bengals at 18. Seahawks, you would say, I mean, are they looking at a quarterback for the future? But all of these quarterbacks now, I mean, you're going way down the pecking order there. Colts have their quarterback in Richardson. Same with Lawrence in Jacksonville. So you can't really expect probably a quarterbacks going within these next three picks to fill up some of this stuff here where, maybe taking up spots that the Bengals wouldn't be targeting, positions that they wouldn't be targeting here. So this is probably where you're going to start to see the guys that have been largely mocked to the Bengals start to kind of roll off the board here right in front of them, potentially, whether that's Mims, whether that's Murphy, whether that's Newton, whether that's Fautanu. To me, right now, and again, I could look like an idiot here in 5 minutes, but to me, Fautanu makes a lot of sense if he's there for the Bengals, from a, potentially start him at guard and groom him for a tackle of the future type of situation. Both of the interior defensive tackles, Newton and Murphy, they both make a lot of sense here, obviously, for the Bengals. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say one of the defensive tackles and two of the offensive tackles go, or vice versa, two defensive tackles and then one offensive tackle go right in front of the Bengals here. Is that Brian Thomas time? You've got a disgruntled wide receiver who's made it known that he wants to get out of Cincinnati. I mean, I don't think he wants actually out of Cincinnati. He wants a long-term contract, but it's give me the contract or I want to be traded. Do you go defensive end for the second year in a row because of the Trey Hendrickson situation that popped up 24 hours before the draft, 36 hours before the draft? And by the way, we took the air, and then like an hour later, we took the air for a show yesterday, and then an hour later that news pops. It's like, geez, thanks a lot. Couldn't we have breaking news on the air like that? Not that any of us wanted that breaking news, but regardless, the Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of different options here and a lot of good players available still. And again, you've got the Colts on the clock. You've got the Seahawks and Jaguars going. So here are some of the names again left. Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama. Quinion Mitchell, local favorite out of Toledo. Good corner. Terrion Arnold, same. Might that be the play? They love those first-round corners. They've drafted a ton of them. Might that be the play? Laiatu Latu. Love that guy. Another play. So they're probably, within reason, you're going to get one of the top edge defenders, one of the top corners, one of the top defensive tackles, and one of the better offensive tackles will be there for the Bengals when they pick. I mean all of them. I mean, you get within reason, and that's being conservative with it. You could have both of the defensive ends. You could have both of the corners available to them. So there are a lot of players here. Now, in terms of best available, according to ESPN, they currently have Dallas Turner, the edge defender out of Alabama, as the best available. Quinton Mitchell is the next. Terrion Arnold, the corner out of Alabama. After that, Latu, the edge defender out of UCLA, is number 4. Murphy is the number 5 remaining on the board, according to ESPN and ESPN.com. Fautanu rounds that out at 6. Jared Verse, another player that could interest the Bengals here. And so, that lot of options. And then of course you've got the wide receivers. Brian Thomas, who I mentioned is number 13 of the best available according to ESPN, and Mims is number 12, which is who is the best available. And Mims, of course, mocked often to the Bengals because of his athleticism and all kinds of different facets. So a fascinating, what started off as a super predictable first round and top 5, right? Kind of turned into this crazy picks 5 to 11 just kind of went haywire in a lot of respects, and dropped a lot of very, very good players. This is a great draft for a team like the Bengals that do not need a quarterback. It's a great draft for teams who need one, and it's a great draft for teams who are back a little bit and don't need one, because they are getting some players falling to them that I'm really fascinated to see what's going to win out, because there are going to be a lot of players who are here. And Martin tells us here that Latu is gone. So one of my favorite players in this class, unfortunately, gone. But again, your top 2 corners in the class, Mitchell and Arnold, Dallas Turner, the edge defender, Byron Murphy still there, Fautanu still there. Just really, really, this is one of the better, more entertaining first rounds that I have seen. So here's the thing. You now already have 1, 2, 3, 4 tackles off the board. So if the Bengals were to take a tackle, I don't know if you want to look at it this way or not, but essentially they would be taking the 5th best player at the position at number 18. And that's where you go, okay, value from that standpoint, or what's the other standpoint there, which is that class is so good and so deep that that just trumps other position groups and other possibilities there, because this offensive tackle group, the talent level, even at the 5th guy, is far and above other positions that can be deemed need or in need of additional depth. Here's the thing, and I know a lot of people are saying this, go defense, Kurt Rowe, and I get it. I get it. That defense last year was not great to watch, not fun. Hendrickson was great. BJ Hill had some moments. You had some decent moments from your linebackers, and Cam Taylor-Britt had a heck of a first half of the season before some injuries and stuff came along. But so I understand. And in this division where teams like to run the ball, I get it. I'm with you. Here's my caveat. The Bengals went pretty heavy in free agency on defense already. So how are they going to balance those scales? Are they just going to say, man, the needs on defense are just way too much that we have to continue to build that side of the ball? I mean, Geno Stone, Von Bell, Sheldon Rankins. I mean, they just brought a lot of guys on that side of the ball who are probably poised to have big roles this year. I am really, really fascinated as to how the Bengals, and this is going to say a lot here, I am fascinated as to how the Bengals are looking at their cornerback group at the moment. They love first round corners, love them. There have been many picks at corner in the first round for the Bengals. If these one or both of these 2 guys are still available with this pick at 18, and those 2 being, of course, Quinion Mitchell, the Toledo corner, who is the consensus top player, Terrion Arnold, another great corner in this class. Would they go after those guys instead and kind of say, you know what, we'll get our tackle in the second round because a lot of these guys fell further. We can get a guy in the second round at offensive tackle that we feel we can develop, whether that's a Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame or, a handful of others. I'm really, really fascinated as to how this is going to play out for them. We know the handful of positions they view as premium positions. And here's the other thing with the interior defensive tackle. And I know a lot of people like, Newton and Murphy, and rightfully so. But the Bengals normally, whether it's a 3-tech or a nose tackle. I mean, you look back to rounds 3 and 4 is where they go interior defensive line. Pico, Sims. I mean, Frosty Rucker was kind of a Swiss Army knife guy, but he played inside and outside a little bit. I mean, Pat Sims, I said, Andrew Brown, I think was like a 5th round pick. I mean, they use those middle round picks on interior defensive linemen a lot. Now, this group, a lot of the guys I'm referring to have been kind of more Marvin Lewis era players. This group has kind of bucked some of the trends that we've seen for so long in that regard. But, you know, I just think, I think if you look at history, there are positions that they prefer and you go, oh man. And so, you know, how do they feel about DJ Turner? Really good start to the season last year. Tough end to the season last year. Cam Taylor-Britt was looking every bit of the part of a shutdown corner for the first half of the year, but he's had some, you know, bumps and bruises along the way there. So, you know, I don't quite know exactly what they're going to do here. And so we are just a couple minutes away from the Bengals picking, we think. We'll see exactly what, maybe they do trade back. We will see. But very, very interesting first round. Very, very. Let's hear in the comments here. We got a lot of people tuning in, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter X. Tell me right now, here we are, just, you know, right about 7:00. Tell me who you want, and I'll pin some of these comments here. Tell me who you're wanting. I'm seeing some Murphy. I think some people still want tackle regardless. And I had a light turn off on me there. Can you see me in the dark still? Tell me who you want here. So we got Mims or Murphy. My guy Mike Murphy. A lot of Murphys, guys. A lot of Murphys. Interesting. Let's see who else we got. Seeing if I got a little bit of light back there. Let's see. This other light will come back on, by the way. Let's see who else we got here. Mims. We got Mims. Either corner. Here we go. K-Dub going a little different with it. I like it. Round 2 defensive tackle is deep. That's the only thing. Yeah. I mean, you could get your Michael Halls, you know, you can, and that sort of thing. So I don't know, man. Something's kind of sneakily telling me that maybe corner might be in play a little bit more than we think at this point. So we'll have to see. What updates do we have here? So Seahawks are still on the board, I believe, and then Jacksonville and then the Bengals. So here's a question for you all, too, who just answered this. You know, when you're saying corner, when you're saying, is this a heart pick? Is this a hey, they got to do, that's the guy I want, or that's the guy you think the Bengals will want, or both? So if you're a Murphy guy, do you think it's because that's just, you feel like the Bengals, that's just their guy from the get-go? I'm surprised I also haven't seen a lot of Newtons from the comments here. It's been a lot of Murphy, a lot of Mims. You know, I think Murphy Murphy's the consensus better player. So the Seahawks pick is in. Yeah, Michael Coe. Yeah, see, I'm kind of feeling it too. Someone said I missed the comment who said it, but someone said tight end earlier. I do not. Yeah, I mean, I don't see tight end with Bowers gone. No offense. Byron Murphy to Seattle. That was the pick. Yep. So Murphy is off the table. You now have Mims, Newton, Fautanu, the two corners. That's a big hit. And this, and I know we don't know exactly how these guys will be right away, or down the road even. But this is the risk you take when you sit and wait, right? When you sit and wait, they sometimes even just a couple of picks in front of you. It's the Frank Ragnow thing, right? Instead of going up and getting, now we don't know really how the board fell for the Bengals, especially really talking about after pick 10, right? Because all those quarterbacks were up there and they probably had the quarterbacks highly valued, but they don't need them. So I'm talking about when Fashanu was there, Brock Bowers was there, Fuaga was there, Latu was there, Murphy was there. Be interesting to know how their board shook out at that point. This is a good question here from Caleb. Can a top corner help right away? That's what you take. Again, how do the Bengals feel about DJ Turner's development? How do they feel about relying on Cam Taylor? And I love Cam Taylor, Britt, but can he be relied upon for a full season, mostly a full season, that sort of thing? And there were issues last year in the passing game. There were issues against the run. So, and I said it before, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but the Bengals have shown a propensity as an organization to be, they could be perceived as spiteful or wise in terms of planning contingency plans. Because, and what I mean by that is, again, they have two star players, one on each side of the ball, who have said, trade me. And so now all of a sudden you're looking, so we now have another trade with, was it Minnesota moving up? Is that what Minnesota leapfrogged us, the Bengals. They leapfrogged the Bengals to get a player. And I wonder if this is going to be either Newton or an offensive tackle. Very, very interested to see what Minnesota moved up here. Minnesota doing all kinds of work today. Moved. I mean, they were at 11 and they moved up to 10. And then here they are again, moving all the way back up to 17 right in front of the Bengals. They probably will. Dan the man says they probably will take they should take that. I don't know if they're going to do that. They have their own wide receiver situation that's trying to work itself out. Sorry about the lighting here, guys. It's light will kick back on here in a second. I don't know what happened to it, but not that you need to see my ugly mug anyway. Come on. You don't need to see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up something else for you guys to look at going forward here. So, yeah, you got Byron Murphy going to Seattle. Minnesota trades with Jacksonville. Jacksonville slides down to the number 23 overall pick, and Minnesota now is at 17, one spot ahead of the Bengals. And obviously they made this move because they felt the Bengals were going to probably go after this player. I mean, I would assume that's why they are doing that. So I'm going to show you this, and I got a soft spot for Daniel Jeremiah for a lot of reasons here. Dan, I love it. I know you can kind of see me. You can kind of, I don't know. Let's go with this. I'm going to share NFL.com, the best prospects still available here right now as we speak. So Terrion Arnold, the corner, is in the number 9 overall player. Troy Fautanu. This is the guy, I think, and we got to see what happens here with Minnesota. This is a guy, if it's not going to be corner, I think it's Fautanu, unless he goes here to Minnesota. I think he could do, he could be the guy that does a lot of different things for you. Quinyon Mitchell, the Toledo corner here. Now DJ has Terrion Arnold ahead of Quinyon Mitchell. ESPN has it a little vice versa there, but I mean, they are neck and neck from that. Dallas Turner, talented edge player. Jared Verse, another great edge player. And then you got Brian Thomas Jr. Is that the wild card here? We will see. But I mean, this is pretty exciting from a Bengals standpoint because there are a lot of good players, some of which you felt weren't going to be here going forward. So Dallas Turner's going to Minnesota. So he is gone. Good value. Good value for them. Arguably the top pass rusher in the draft, right? Good value. So maybe they thought the Bengals, hey, with their Trey Hendrickson situation, maybe they thought that that's where they were going to lean. And so now the Bengals are on the clock as we speak. And man, again, let's just kind of review this here as the Bengals are on the clock. We can kind of refresh this here a little bit. Terrion Arnold, Troy Fautanu, Quinyon Mitchell, Turner's gone. I need to refresh this. Jared Verse out there. Brian Thomas Jr. Now Murphy's gone. This needs to be kind of updated here on the NFL.com side of things. But Mims there. Mims probably in the conversation there. And then you got Newton. The pundits aren't as high on Newton as others seem to be. And by the way, here, just for some fun, and I don't care, copyright be damned, I guess, I'm going to play the volume at least from it may not come through great, but we'll at least hear the I'll play the audio of the pick as we get rolling here from I've got the ESPN broadcast going. But anyway, we'll pop that on in just a second. I'm going to refresh this here. Bengals have about 5 minutes left on the clock, according to the TV broadcast. This has the potential to be something that is surprising and very pleasantly surprising, disappointing surprising, or just kind of predictable. So people are saying Amarius Mims. We will see if that is the pick indeed. That would not be. I get it, and by the way, if that is indeed the pick, if that is indeed the pick, Amarius Mims, the big athletic tackle out of Georgia, then I get it. And again, you go back to Frank Pollock on Dave Lapham's show, and man, he was all gushing about Amarius Mims, the athleticism, and what he can provide. So, man, we'll see if that's who it is. A lot of people are really happy about this here. And of course, a tradition unlike any other, ladies and gentlemen, they go to commercial when the Bengals are on the clock. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A tradition unlike any other. Can't believe it. Well, I can believe it because it happens every year. But we're seeing a lot of news saying that it is Amarius Mims, predictable, and hey, smart, right? That is the smart play. If that, in a way, I kind of would have probably gone Fautanu, but I also think I mean I get it. And this now, if this is the pick here, this Mims and Frank Pollock, this there's a chicken or an egg argument that exists with Frank Pollock, right? And I'll scroll down here just a second on the NFL.com page to show you where they had. So Mims was down on. Here he is right here. He was the 23rd ranked player by Daniel Jeremiah here. To me, this is the biggest risk pendulum swing at this position in the draft. So here we go. The pick is in here. We'll get it. We'll get it playing here in just a second. But you know, I can't believe they're a commercial again. I'm just blown away by that. The risk pendulum here with Mims is huge, right? Limited tape, injuries, different stuff that's accounted for a small amount of snaps at the collegiate level. The Bengals love Georgia players. They love them. They love them. And so they love this kid. They love the athletic profile. They love the tools. And when he's been out there, he's been dominant. He just hasn't been out there a lot. And so this is the guy. And when you look at the size, you know, we're talking about a guy that at least size wise resembles the two tackles they currently have. And then you look at the athletic profile, the RAS, etc. It's a guy that just blows up in terms of, the tools, the athleticism. The Bengals and Frank Pollock hasn't really had the big picks. You know, he's had to settle for mid-round picks and other things of that nature to get to groom, and it hasn't worked. And so, you know, they've the last time they kind of were heavily investing into offensive linemen, it was kind of Billy Price, but Cedric Ogbuehi and other players like that. He's had a ton of other middle round players to groom and develop, and it just hasn't worked. And so now he's got a guy that not only can learn behind two huge players and star players at the position in the NFL, but not only does he have the size profile of those two players, but Mims has the athletic profile that those two do not have. So this is, this is a guy that brings a lot to the Bengals here. And I think we're going to get to the announcement here. So I'm going to turn this up. So let's see it. Hopefully you can hear it.
Looks like to me the perfect fit for a Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Lewis with the reports today from Adam Schefter that T. Higgins is requested.
This is the ESPN broadcast. I'm not going to stream it. I'm just going to give you the sound as they announce the pick.
With Joe Burrow and the number of hits that he's taken and the injuries that he has suffered, and with the questions that you have still at offensive tackle, and I like Trent Brown as much as anyone. Massive human being. He's only signed to a one-year deal, I believe. I think that position still needs to be locked down. The offensive line still needs to be locked down at all costs. You need to protect Joe Burrow. He has to make it through a season. You have to address the offensive line.
Find out the Cincinnati Bengals picking here.
Lewis Riddick talking fortune teller, Lewis Riddick.
With the 18th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Amarius Mims, tackle, Georgia. What an interesting prospect this is. Size, athleticism off the charts, but started only 8 games in college due to injury. Played in 30 games, but wasn't a full-time starter until this past year, and he missed about half the season with an ankle that needed surgery.
Celebrating with family, that's pretty cool.
Now there is no question about the talent and the upside.
Had he stayed healthy, Greeny, or had he gone back to Georgia, you'd have been looking at mock draft for 2025, had him in the top 5 to 10 overall, 6'7.5", 340 pounds with the biggest hands I've seen in a while, and long arms, unbelievable arm length. Only 8 starts. He had the ankle this year. But when you look at him, love his footwork and agility for such a huge, massive bookend. Run blocker, you talk about powerful hands, displaced defenders on initial contact, down blocking prowess, develop into a force on the second level, that can happen. As a pass blocker, he's still a little raw, but he has pretty good movement, the power to base anchor, and the long arms to lock out. So again, coaching for Amarius Mims, inexperienced, but if you could draw up a right tackle, Trent Brown's a veteran. You got Joe Burrow, as you said, Lou, that has had injury issues at times. For 2 years, he's been hurt in the NFL early in his career. Amarius Mims is a developmental right tackle.
Yeah, when Amarius ties his lower body in with that reach and the punch and the shock he has in his upper body, he's going to remind you of J.C. Latham. That they're really the same type of guy. It's just that Latham plays with more power, I believe, in his lower half and plays with better bend. Amarius gets a little bit taller, a little bit bigger of a guy, but I'll tell you this, he fits what Cincinnati typically has looked for at their tackles. Bigger guys who have athleticism that they try to continue to develop. They understand that Joe Burrow has to stay healthy, because when he is, they are right there at the very top in the AFC. They can challenge anyone, but you have to fortify the offensive line, which has been a problem. He's been hit way too much since he's come into the league, that being Joe Burrow.
And they're going to put him in position to succeed. They want to run the football. Let's remember Zach Taylor, the head coach. We talk about Joe Burrow a
lot. I will cut them off right there. But you heard the breakdown from Mel. And by the way, that tune with Mel Kiper Jr., that classic that classic ESPN tune with Mel Kiper Jr. giving you a breakdown. Nothing much better than that. Hey, look, this is we've talked about this draft and who the Bengals may or may not get. This is a guy, and by the way, this breakdown, just to be fair, I got the NFL.com side on here, Daniel Jeremiah, his review, and you heard Mel Kiper give his review here. This is probably not going to be the all sexy draft class, right? There's not going to be a lot of running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff with all the skill position players, right? This is going to be trenches. This is going to be depth pieces. These are going to be developmental pieces. Mims he's got to develop, right? I mean, there's just not a lot of tape on him and not a lot of snaps in college on him, but when he is out there, he's dominant. And so you saw the RAS profile as well. I'll pull that up for you. But I mean, a guy that, man, huge, can move and is powerful. And this is a guy, I think, also in the AFC North that fits the bill. I think a lot of people in this live chat are loving this pick going forward here. And so, by the way, I will stop this here. Let there be light. I got my light back here. So we're going to be here a little bit longer talking about it. We'll see what happens with the rest of the picks here going forward. But man, we got a lot of people joining us. I love it. Primarily on the Twitter accounts. We got a ton of people on the Twitter accounts watching us. So, and I say us, but it's just me by my lonesome. John Sharon might be joining us in just a little bit here, and we'll talk about him. But this is interesting. I didn't, because we didn't do that telecast there. Sorry. This one right here from Jason Delaney. Nick Saban has obvious concerns with him. I didn't hear exactly what he said, but I would like to hear what he said about it. Again, this is the risk reward pendulum with this guy. And at 18 and with 2 established starters at tackle, you can maybe attempt to make this gamble more often than other teams can. So yeah, Felipe, I don't know that's going to happen. Some of those guys are just huge. But anyway, this was a guy that was pegged to the Bengals for a long time, a guy that seemed to be the fit going forward. I see our boy Mike here is pretty happy about it. And T Brookie here, I think we queued that clip up a little bit on our show a little while ago, where Pollock was just gushing about him. Let me see if I could pull up the RAS score for you here. And I know some people love those things, some people don't, but I like them. This is a smart pick. It's a risky pick, but it is a smart pick. And it's an area of the team that has long been a problem. And you look at the starters across the board for the Bengals on the offensive line. There's one player that they have drafted that has been there's one starter that's been drafted. The rest have been free agency, long-term deals, short-term deals, that sort of thing. They have scrambled to find the solution with the offensive line, and Mims is a guy I think that maybe he can get by with a couple of plays or a couple of games rather this year. So look at this. I'm going to show this to you here. Whew, boy, I think you're going to like this one in case you didn't see it. Here you go. From Kent Lee Platt at MathBomb. Go follow him. This is the relative athletic score. Let's try it again. There you go. Relative athletic score here from MathBomb, 9.59. And you gotta like that. You gotta like that. 9.59 at 6'7.5", 340 pounds. And he, to use a weird statement, I guess, wears the weight well, right? I mean, it's not, he's just, the weight's evenly distributing. It looks like an very athletic guy at 340. 5.07 40-yard dash at 6'7.5" and 340 pounds. That's silly. And then you see the 20-yard split, the 10-yard split, the vertical, not great. But the broad jump, it just shows pretty good explosion, great speed grade, great size grade. And, there's a lot here that translates. Now the agility stuff did not, I think he got, if memory serves, he got kind of nicked up at the combine or something of that nature. So he didn't do some of the other testing stuff, but this is this is good stuff right here. This is good stuff right here. And a lot of clay for Coach Pollock to work with here. And I was kind of talking about it a little bit. This is kind of going to be one of the true barometers of Frank Pollock's coaching prowess, career, etc. Because again, he hasn't really had this much overall talent to work with, but there's a lot of risk here. And one of the times, at least not with the Bengals, I should say. Now, that being said, I want to show you, and I mentioned this when we broke down Mims a while ago, as a prospect profile here. I'm going to show you this here. And unfortunately, there are some similarities, and I hate to go, it's hard to compare some of these players like to, current players or that sort of thing. But I will show you this. And this is a guy that they did pick with a high pick at his time on another team with a very similar background. You see there, what I say, 959 with Mims, 985 Mekhi Becton. The big size, 6'7" plus. Now heavier, about 25 pounds heavier, 24 pounds heavier. And you look at the other things, but the again, 5.1 40-yard dash. What was Mims? 50 something. I mean, you look at it, there's a lot of similarities here, and you're talking about the same coach, and this never materialized. Now, some of that is not on Frank Pollock. Some of that is on Becton in terms of injuries and just other fluke things, but it is something to note. So we can talk about all the RAS stuff. We can talk about all of these, and they do mean a lot, but there are some similarities there that I don't know. They bear some weight. Now, real quick, the Steelers are on the clock, and they didn't. They took them. That's not good. Troy Fautanu going to the Steelers, it would seem. Man. So yeah, I mean, Kurt Rowe, I mean, that's when he's been out there, it's outstanding. But again, the sample size, it's about the sample size we're talking about here. It's small. So that's where, but there are a lot of things here that make sense for the Bengals, right? Athletic profile, size, SEC, more specifically Georgia. There are a lot of boxes being checked about him. And of course, I mean, at some point, you got to start fixing things long-term on that offensive line with Joe Burrow. You have to. So we'll see what happens here for, this is interesting. This is not a lot of people have been talking about this. T Martin here, he's a guard for, I don't know if you're talking about, if you're referring to Mims or somebody else there, but Volson, normally you say, well, guard, you're not going to be that tall. I think Cordell Volson's pretty dang tall, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's about 6'7", right? 6'6". Yeah, listed at 6'6". So, I mean, possibly this is that guard to tackle, but I think my gut tells me that just the lack of starting experience, the lack of starting snaps going forward is, it would be hard to say he's going to be the guard this year and develop into tackle if that's what's being proposed with that comment there. But, oh yeah, gotcha. So yeah, Fautanu. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think he's going to be a guard at least for the foreseeable future, and then maybe kick out to tackle. But that's just a really, really good pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here we go again. If you want to go back to, gosh, what year was that? 2012, when the Bengals drafted Kevin Zeitler. They had Drake Kirkpatrick and Kevin Zeitler, and they moved back, and the Steelers took David DeCastro, and the Bengals then took Kevin Zeitler. DeCastro had the more decorated career and was arguably the better player. Zeitler still playing and playing at a pretty decent level at this point, way into the game. But we're going to have this same comparison now. Which team made the better decision? Did it work out for both of them? The thing I liked about Fautanu is a lot of people believe that he was going to be a guy that could play every single spot on the line, every spot on the line. So we'll see exactly what how their careers pan out here, but good picks for both teams. I would say the risk for the Bengals is quite a bit higher than it is with Fautanu, but again, this is a guy that brings you all the tools. What grade, for those tuning in on a variety of platforms, what grade would you give the Bengals drafting Amarius Mims at number 18 overall? And I will wait as we catch up on the live chats here. Okay, so we're getting some grades here. Here we go. Scott gives it a C. T gives it an A. This is very indicative of the player too. C. Peter gives it a B plus. Mark gives it a B plus. Craig a B. Dan an A. Andrew Woods a C. T Brookie a B minus. So yeah, this is kind of the deal. And this was the argument that I think Dave Lapham presented to Frank Pollock. And I'm gonna try. We almost had Anthony come on around Super Bowl time, and he just couldn't swing it. But we'll try and get Anthony Munoz on here in the next in the near future. See if he can come on and talk about this pick. Talk about and maybe some parallels that he sees between his college path and this one, and the criticisms in each. I mean, there was no doubt that when Munoz was playing, he was a can't miss prospect. He was a guy that, he was the guy. But injuries, he was playing a lot of baseball. He was doing all kinds of different things. And so, the snaps were limited, and they just felt very comfortable taking him where they took him. And the rest is history. He's the best tackle to ever play the game. So that, and Lapham again talked about it. We're going to be here just a couple more minutes. We've been going on for a while, but I'm going to bring on somebody far more entertaining and intelligent than I, and that's Randall. No, it's John Sheeran. It's not Randall. I'm kidding. John, we got a lot of people watching, my friend. How are you? How are you We called it. I mean, one of the most predictable off seasons in Bengals history continues to be that with the first round pick, right?
Look, I'm not saying I'm the most accurate Bengals mock drafter of all time. Sorry, can I hear me? Anthony? Hello? Trying to do a victory lap here. Can you not hear me?
Gosh, I gave him this great introduction and everything, and he's just silent.
How about now?
Oh, you can hear him? Maybe it's me that can't.
Now you're embarrassing me? Oh my God. I'm trying to do a victory lap here, man.
So is me. It's always me.
You got me now?
Yes.
Okay. I know they heard it, but you didn't hear it. I'm not saying I'm the most accurate Bengals mock drafter of all time, but I'm 2 for 2 in the last 2 years. So I'm just here for the victory lap.
Okay. I like it. I'll let you have your I mean, again, your reaction.
Look, I know there's risk. Obviously, it's the draft. It's a guy that has only started 8 games, though he's played in 30. It's someone who most recently suffered multiple injuries within the past year, even though the timeline of those injuries has precedent for happening if you rush back from said injuries. That is all known. It's been formed into, I'll say, kind of lazy narratives, even though there is risk, obviously. But Amarius Mims is by far, and I mean by far, the most talented offensive lineman the Bengals have invested in a long, long time. With past the past 10 years. Like, probably you're going back to the 2000s. And this has always been my stance. Like, if he had stayed healthy this year, the Bengals would not have a shot at taking him 18. Now, I know that's the same. I hesitate bringing up Cedric Ogbuehi, but I remember Paul Alexander in his opening press conference saying, yeah, if he wasn't injured, they wouldn't have gotten him. That was a terrible evaluation. Cedric Ogbuehi was not viewed by anyone credible as a first-round pick. Amarius Mims is. And the only reason why he fell is because of the unknowns, is because of some of those minor flags in his profile from lack of playing experience and his unfortunate past year of injuries. But when he's been on the field, he looks every bit talented as a first-round pick should be. There is some rawness to his game. He does need some seasoning, but he's in the ideal situation for him to develop into all he can be. He's with the right coach. He knows how to develop elite talent. He's now the third tackle behind other similarly built tackles. They now have 3 guys who are built this way, so they have an understanding and they have the incentive to manage them and perform maintenance on them so they don't overwork themselves because of how big that they are. He's in the ideal situation to reach his potential, and his potential is being the best offensive lineman in this class.
Which is saying something given all the talent here. I don't know why I'm echoing so much. Am I echoing to you, John?
I don't hear an echo.
How did you feel about the Steelers taking Fautano?
That was interesting. They were linked to Graham Barton a ton, and I think they may have thought that Fautano wasn't going to be available to them. So it might have been they were looking at offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman specifically, and he just became the best guy that they didn't expect to be there. But yeah, I do think that they probably see him as either a guard or a center. He's been known to have, or he's been credited for having the ability to play all 5 positions, and I would imagine the Steelers view him there because they typically like size at tackle. So they have obviously weak points along the interior, both at guard and center. He could play all 3 of those spots, but I think it's good for him to he's going inside and he's going to stay inside, which is better than going inside and then going back outside, which may have been what the Bengals would have done with him if they had made the pick.
I don't know. It just seems like classic Steeler pick. What did you think about the corners being available?
That was surprising. There's all this talk about the Eagles potentially trading up for Quinyon Mitchell. The fact that the first, I think 14 picks were offensive players, which is unprecedented. It's never happened before in NFL history. Latu being the first defensive player, I guess that was kind of expected, maybe to pick 8. So the fact that he fell at 15 was interesting. But I guess it's the fact that it's the fact that maybe Mitchell comes from the MAC and lack of competition, and maybe the Senior Bowl wasn't enough to sway teams to take that high of a pick on him. And maybe with Arnold, you're talking about a lack of speed, which I think was always kind of a flag for the Bengals. They typically like to go 4.4 or lower for those corners, and he was a 4.5 guy. So I think both those aspects combined with the fact that there was a tackle that they viewed as worth a first-round pick was available is why at least the Bengals passed on both cornerbacks. But I would imagine just lack of competition for Mitchell and lack of speed for Arnold is the reason why they're, I guess, still available.
Yeah, I just thought that might have been very good look at with the falling. It's a position they value.
Yeah, for sure.
What grade do you have?
I'm sorry, what?
Grade do you have?
Right now it's a B+. Obviously, if it pans out, it's an A+ by far because that's a franchise tackle with the potential and the ceiling to be a guy that can shut out the best pass rushers in the league, which is exactly what the Bengals need long term. He's got to get there, and that requires him to stay healthy, not have any major setbacks in these first couple of years. We will see the early returns on investment once. I don't want to make it sound like it's inevitability, but there's a high chance that Trent Brown's not playing all this season, and he's most likely the first guy off the bench. So we're going to see how ready he is, at least sometime this year. We don't know when, but it is definitely a pick for the long term, which, yeah, like an A+ would be someone who is an immediate full-time starter who's also got the potential to be one of the best players in the league. So he's not quite that because of the situation that he's in. But the fact that long-term wise, he has the good potential to be exactly what they need for the long term, it's at least a B+ for me.
What do you think is the aim in the second round?
Defensive tackle. Yeah, I think the value just lines up the best there because, there's only one off the board and we're in the 20s now. We have to see how far Johnny Newton falls. I think the Bengals probably did view him as like a late first-round guy. But just like with every other team, it's the Jones fracture. It's the questionable medical, which clearly ended up being more concerning than compared to Mims's medical. But But no, like until we see this run on defensive tackles, I think the Bengals are going to get a chance at one of the guys that they like in round 2. But obviously, like there's some buzz about cornerback as well. The problem is there's just not a lot of cornerbacks that are as fast enough that the Bengals like to prioritize. Like, I mean, they only draft burners at the position, and like Max Melton is like the only guy projected on day 2 who's that fast. So maybe he would be like in the conversation at 49, but it looks like either a defensive tackle or an outlier pick at wide receiver, maybe.
Yeah, we're seeing some people talk about Newton falling, and if the Bengals end up doing a trade up like they did with Taylor Britt.
Right. And then that was only like 3 picks, and they only sacrificed a day 3 pick. I will say, Anthony, I don't know what you were discussing like as the Bengals were about to pick, but the fact that
I was just rambling.
No, but like Byron Murphy, like he kept falling, right? And we were discussing like maybe this is the scenario where if Murphy's so far ahead of Mims on their board, maybe they trade up with the Colts, only a handful of spots. Maybe they use that 97th pick to go out and get what would have been the first defensive player off the board, someone that I think they probably would have taken over Mims. The fact that they didn't trade up 3 spots for Byron Murphy, like this was probably the year where it would have been the most likely for them to trade up in the first round, and they still didn't do it, which I think says a lot about what we can just expect going forward. They just don't like to trade up in the first round, and they're just not interested at all.
They don't like to trade up in the first round, and they don't like interior defensive linemen in the first round. I mean, that's third or fourth round usually. Maybe that's the case again this weekend. I don't know.
Yeah,
or both.
I think the last time they picked a defensive tackle in the second round was Devin Still, so that would still be kind of a tendency breaker. It's usually the third round where it's the sweet spot, but I do think that they were heavily considering Murphy there, and if he had fallen, I think he probably would have been the pick. So it's just a matter of, finding just the right scenario in the right year, and it just wasn't this year. But no, I definitely think that in the second round, it's 100% on the table as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it. I was talking to myself about it. They had an opportunity when Seattle was on the clock. You looked at who was available. You're going to have a top edge rusher. You're going to have a top defensive tackle, and you're going to have one of the better offensive tackles in this class. And then the corners, right? So it's like, you kind of felt like they're going to get a premier player and or someone that you felt was pretty high up on their board.
I will say though, I think it was Bengal Jim, friend of the podcast, fellow host on this lovely channel of ours. He tweeted out like I think a couple picks before the Bengals picked is like I think it was just Murphy or Guyton ? And that sparked speculation as to whether or not Tyler Guyton, the tackle of Oklahoma, was ahead of Mims on their board. And I think we can both agree that would have just been Billy Price all over again, where it's just like you're taking the position to just take the position, and maybe there would have been some people that would have agreed that Guyton was even less of a risk compared to Mims when you're factoring injury, but like the board did fall pretty favorably for them, even if it wasn't too unexpected. You had 4 tackles go off the board, Byron Murphy go off the board, Brock Bowers go off the board. All of that was pretty much expected, but you still, like you said, you still had a choice of a handful of good guys and no cornerbacks off the board. So that had to be in the conversation too, but it just seemed very clear from the onset that offensive tackle was the target here, and as long as there was a guy that they deemed worthy of playing that spot in the first round, he was going to be the pick, and that ended up being Mims.
Yeah, so there's some echoing going on here. I don't know if there's something on your end, John, that you can do with the audio set. I've tried tweaking a couple of different things in terms of I'm going through, and I don't want to make our listeners' ears bleed going forward there. But yeah, I mean, look, they were in a good spot. Things were falling a certain way in this round, and so now I think closer to what we were talking about. With our mock draft, right? I mean, this was our pick in our mock draft. And then we go next round. We said it was Michael Hall. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Man, if Newton just somehow slides and gets out of the first round, though, that would be a tempting thing for the Bengals to move up, package some picks. Again, you look at it with all of their picks. Are all of these rookies going to make the team? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, they have a little bit more depth issues than they've had maybe the last year or two, but I don't know, man. I mean, I think if there's a really good player that you felt like, man, why is this guy here right now? Let's move up and get him at a position that you feel you need some extra help at. Man, if Newton is there, maybe even, I mean, end of first, I don't know, but that's a guy where you could just go, man, that's a that would be a great get.
It's all about the medical at the end of the day, and I don't know. Like, it's already rare enough that they trade up. If they trade up for a guy with question marks in that regard, it would be even more unlikely. But if his medical's fine, he probably doesn't make it out of the first round. So it's a case of waiting to see. But yeah, I think we're both on the same page where it's like a trade up is probably likely if there's that situation of one final guy in a bucket that they didn't expect to be there at one of those positions, and Newton would certainly qualify.
What's and we'll get out of here in a few. I know you've had a long night and you got to get to some other stuff, as do I, my friend, and I appreciate you hopping on. What's kind of an ideal scenario for tomorrow night for the Bengals? Is it again, more, maybe a little bit more as we did? Well, I think we did Estime in the 4th round, if I remember correctly, right? In our mock draft. But is it wide receiver, running back, and maybe corner? Is it defensive tackle, wide receiver, and then just a wild card player, maybe a tight end? What's kind of your ideal at this point?
Ideal would be to take the best defensive tackle available in the 2nd round, because I feel like the value for that position is better there, and we'll see how the board kind of falls between then. And then the value, I think, lines up best at wide receiver in round 3. I think you have to take a wide receiver within the first 100 picks. The class is too stacked to just totally pass on that position regardless. Even if you're not replacing T. Higgins in a year, you're replacing at least the snaps that Tyler Boyd is taking. So you want a guy who's got experience and capability in the slot who can also move outside. And there's just plenty of guys that fit that mold. It's always going to be a rare receiving class at this point. There's always going to be 15 guys in this range, but like, this is a really stacked class, and you got 3 picks in that range where the value lines up the most for that position. And as far as I can tell, through 23 picks, there hasn't been, I think there's only been 3 receivers off the board. I don't think Brian Thomas has gone. I don't think Xavier Worthy has gone. So I don't know if that pushes down receivers in general, but it is setting up well for the Bengals to get a decent value on round 3. So defensive tackle, wide receiver, and then I can see cornerback or maybe tight end.
The quarterback run at the beginning of this draft was just insane. I mean,
right.
It was insane. I mean, this right here, AB, I mean, holy moly. If you were to get those 2 guys in some form or fashion on night 2, along with Mims, that's a hell of a draft. And you could screw up the rest of the way, I feel like. And here's the thing with me for Mims, and I feel like the risk is pretty significant based on some of the, and I know you called them minor. I don't know that I would necessarily deem some of them minor. I have my concerns about it, but I do feel that because of the profile, and the Bengals have whiffed on a lot of big time, you can go back, Boyhe, Fisher, Carmen. I mean, Billy Price and all these high pick offensive lines that just boom, boom, and you go, oh man. I feel like while the risk is more significant than maybe even some of those names we mentioned, I feel like the potential to hit on a Pro Bowl player is way higher than the rest of those guys. Then because of the profile, because of the RAS profile, because of who he is, and because of what, even though it's small, because of what we've seen on the tape, I feel like the risk factor is probably higher, but the hit factor and the ability of how big of a hit it is way higher than the rest of those. And I know hindsight's 20/20. You can say, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, because those guys fizzled out, but I see big potential here, and both ways. I see big potential.
That's a good way of looking at it. I don't think anyone can say that like Mims doesn't come with risk 100%. It's just a matter of how risky you view it. But yes, compared to the Boyhes, the Prices, the Jackson Carmens, those guys were completely overdrafted
in terms of ability, whereas Mims is worth a first-round pick in every sense of the word for what he's done on the field when he has been on the field. And I think that would definitely lead to a worse or a more polarizing conversation if there was far more variances in his play and whatnot. So that is definitely something to write home about.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say goodbye. There's like literally thousands of people watching us live right now, which is crazy. But I think, we've been on here for about an hour and 15. I've got some steaks that I was cooking that I wanted to go eat at some point. So, yeah, the rest of my family's eating them, but I haven't eaten them yet. I threw them on the grill and then dove on the computer. But I don't know. I don't know if you've got some final thoughts or things to think about for tomorrow before we kind of head on out of here. I know you've had a long day and you've been killing it with a lot of different coverage. And you and I will, or I think you and I, or maybe just me, will be continuing doing some of this stuff, at least online or on video here throughout the rest of the weekend. But some parting thoughts here as we go into night 2 and how you're feeling and how Bengals fans should feel maybe about just one pick in, right? I mean, who knows what the hell's going to happen at the end of the first round here. But yeah.
I totally understand if fans are wary of the injury history or wary of the inexperience, but I think the Bengals did pick a good player. They picked someone that there's been an outcry for athleticism and just getting a tackle that can actually stop the likes of Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, and that's what they took a swing on. And I think that's worthy of commending them in a sense, despite the risk. And I understand people are going to be on pins and needles until he's actually out there and he shows he's durable, but there's a definite chance here.
That's a great point, and I'm sure we've said it when we profiled him, but this is a pick specifically for those two players to go up against. Honestly, I mean, again, you see those guys 4 times a year, if not maybe 5, depending on how the season shakes out, postseason, etc. And every single time you play them, they have a game-wrecking play. Every single time. And so that's why you signed Trent Brown. That's why you took a chance on a guy like on Mims, and you hope that it ends up playing out, and he just becomes the guy that ends up just minimizing the damage that those two guys create. No, by the way, let's not forget the Ravens, who can kind of generate pressure from all kinds of different places and do all kinds of different things on defense. So if this works out, it's a bigger if than with other players in this draft, I think. But if this works out, the ceiling is almost unlimited, and that's what you have to like about this pick. And you have to accept that there's risk to it, but that's why you grab him at 18 and not 8, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're picking top 10, you pick this guy. The questions linger a little bit bigger because you're like, man, this is a premium pick that you're spending on a guy with some question marks. And here you go. What the hell? It's 18. This guy's got every single tool that you want. There's some limited tape, but let's go for it. Let's try and groom him.
Yeah, and compared to the last 2 years, I think the Bengals picked an elite prospect in Dax Hill with a questionable plan of how to get him on the field by just having him change positions. I think they picked a solid, good, not great prospect in Myles Murphy with a good plan, obviously, but to have him in a defensive end rotation. They picked an elite prospect in Amarius Mims and have a good plan to eventually get him on the field. And I think that's at 18th overall, that's about all you can ask for.
Yep. Great stuff, John. And I know you've been doing a lot of different stuff, and I appreciate you coming on, my friend, and talking a little bit. Let's go have some Ricolas or something for the larynx and the it was lonely without you, man. I was like sitting here talking to myself.
I thought we were going on after, and that's why I committed to the other.
I probably told you that, but I'm like, what the hell? I'll just go on. But it's been good. We've had a lot of people watching the entire time, which is awesome. Primarily, and here goes the lights. See, the lights turn off. I forgot to pay my bill. Happened to me earlier too. It's been that kind of night. We got echoes. We got lights turning off on me. Everything. So it's about that time. I'm getting kicked out. John, tell the people where they can follow you and what you got going in A to Z Sports.
Yeah, so I got an article already up on A to Z about Mims. I'm going to update it in a little bit. And then
overachiever. Of course you do.
Yeah, I'm going to do some best available players for day 2 and, all different other content that comes up. I think there's obviously a presser already out on Mims, and we'll get some content up on that. And don't just go to A to Z Sports. Obviously, Cincy Jungle's killing it with the Mims coverage. So, but I mean, you guys don't have to hear me say that. It's the best place to get Bengals coverage. So, yeah, check us out.
Also, go back in our library, maybe when the lights weren't turning off and we weren't echoing as much. Go back in our library and check out our profile on Mims, because we talked a lot about him, and we knew that this was one of the guys on the short list that the Bengals were looking at here, right? It was Murphy and Newton, and there's some guys. There were the usual suspects, and this was one of the guys. So I feel like we did a decent job breaking them down, not to pat ourselves on the back too much. So go check that out. John and I will be back with more throughout the weekend, and we'll especially tomorrow night. And by the way, late tonight, if you want a late night session with Cincy Jungle and or the Orange and Black Insider and 3 and Out, Jason and Kevin are going to come on and talk live about the pick, and then they're going to talk about best available and all kinds of different things for you to break that down, because obviously there's still some more picks to be made here. We don't have the full picture of who is available. And by the way, Brian Thomas to Jacksonville, according to Dan the Man. So good pick by them. Move back and get a guy like that. That's a good pick by them. So at any rate, hope you guys had fun despite some of the, little things going on here. But John, I appreciate you, my man. And we'll be back with more. Go to A to Z Sports. Go to cincyjungle.com for all of your Bengals draft coverage. And, of course, keep it here. We're going to start loading these things up on the new RSS feed, shooting out to all kinds of different platforms through the Believe Network. We're loading that up, so you'll be able to get the audio side of things coming up. Our show. By the way, keep it to Bengal Jim's social accounts, because he's in Detroit at the event, so he's probably got some entertaining things going on there. Check that out. But, hey, thanks, everybody. We'll be back with more, and we can't really wait to see what else the Bengals have in store for us going forward. But, yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. All right. See you, John.
See you guys.